Welcome to episode 10 of season 2 of Calm Down with James Eade, coming to you live from Edge Studios in San Francisco. And I wondered why I would call a show Calm Down with James Eade. Have you ever met someone agitated or aggravated somehow and told them to calm down? What happens? They don't calm down. They become more agitated, more anxious, more angry. The triple A's. So why would I call the show Calm Down? Because it's not a command, calm down. It's an invitation to calm down with me because I had a lot of anxiety. And I have learned tools and techniques that have helped me ease the anxiety, to calm myself down. And I want to share them. Why? Well, because I'm altruistic, possibly. It may be because I have an ulterior motive. I want to sell this book. This book is called Freedom. I'm the author. It's your path to recovery. Because although I was a success by most standards, material world success, no question about it, but I had this anxiety and I self-medicated. And self-medication led to addiction. And this was a story of redemption and recovery, of how I walked my path. I found my path and I walked it with my head held high, looking people in the eye. And I recorded my experiences in writing, offered it to others to share it. But then I thought, why not have a show with Calm Down to help people calm down with the tools and techniques I have learned? And I will bring on subject matter experts that taught me some of the tools, some of the techniques I've learned from many people. Some of these tools work for me. They may not work for you. Some tools that will work for you may not work for me. It's find what works for you and keep doing it. But above all, the main thing is to find something that'll help you calm down. Because we all can do it. And if I, who was riddled with anxiety, can find ways to calm myself down without ingesting foreign substances, without self-medication, then I think you can do it too. And you need to find, at least I needed to find, a community of people that were supportive, that understood that I had slipped and fallen, but helped me stand back up, dust myself off, and find and walk the path that I needed to walk. And you will find your path. You will be able to walk it. And if other people are walking another path, and they say, come on, walk this path, if it's not your path, it won't help you. Find your path. I have confidence that you can, because it has worked for me. And what worked for me in general will work for you. The specifics will differ. Don't let anyone tell you there's one way. It's not one size fits all. But you will find it if you seek. So seek and calm down. Thank you. Welcome to episode 10 of season 2 of Calm Down with James Eade. I'm James Eade, and no matter how much we try to calm down, there's going to be things that affect us, that set us out of sorts. We might actually have gripes. So I have a senior gripe correspondent, Rick Rosner. Thank you for joining me, Rick.
Hey.
And I'm going to put your title, scrolling across the bottom of the screen.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to start with a mini gripe because this is just a few hours after Biden pardoned his son, Hunter. And, I live mostly on Twitter. My family won't let me use Insta really because they're afraid of being embarrassed. They say it's not my thing. They've had a prohibition in place on Insta for like 8 or 10 years.
Okay.
And it sucks because Twitter has turned to shit. And on a day like today, it's really dumb shit's triumphant. It's there are 77 million people voted for Trump, and some of them are reasonable, nice people.
Of
But
course.
the loudest voices are fucking idiots, and they're on Twitter, and they reinforce each other, and then they drag borderline idiots in, and then it becomes idiots all the way down. So I'm sad that, I've moved to Blue Sky, but I don't want to build a whole new business over there. And
Yeah.
I should probably just start doing OnlyFans. I have horrible feet, and somebody probably has a sex fetish where they get off on the ugliest feet in the world. So maybe I can make $10 or $20 over there.
Okay. Now, isn't
Well,
there another one that's more of a tribal? That's what I was thinking of.
I don't know tribal, but
Tribal is a Twitter kind of like a look-alike as far as how it works, but it's more of I think it would be more people that would kind of agree with you. Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know. Twitter everybody was there. And then he shattered that world. Musk shattered that world. Now there's a diaspora. And yeah, sure, you can start to pick up the pieces and put them back together, but only if you belong to 8 other copycat sites. And that's a lot of work. And I wouldn't just be on Twitter if I weren't lazy, which leads to my main gripe, which is my laziness and how hard it is to make shit happen in show business, which also goes along with my a related gripe. They're all in kind of one gripe ball, is how little juice I have in showbiz. So I've written for TV for, 35 years.
Mm-hmm.
I've written for a ton of people. I've written for 2,000 shows. 2,000 hours of TV includes stuff I've written.
Okay.
On one show alone, I got 7,000 jokes on, a ton.
Yeah.
I'll watch some kind of clip looking at, comedians, and I wrote for him, I wrote a couple things, it's but I can't get anything done. Also because I'm lazy. I talked to a producer at the gym who sells some stuff. I go, on average, how many pitch meetings do you think you have to take to sell one show? And he said 100. There's a ton of people pitching stuff, and there are a ton of development executives, and their job is not to say yes. Their job is to say maybe and say, work a little bit more on this and come back to me. Their job is to take meetings. Like when we were pitching Comedy Central 20 years ago, they maybe had the budget to greenlight 2 shows a year, but they took 1,000 meetings a year. So it was mostly about making meetings to get more meetings. I've been in 4 pilots. I have arguably the highest IQ in America, and I'm a weirdo, an interesting weirdo, which at least 4 times I've been part of pilots where let's do something with that. Let's take the smartest guy in America, or let's take a group of people who have the highest IQs in America, and then let's have them analyze problems. Let's have them do 4 pilots, including one that already had a time slot. A Nat Geo. We were all ready to go. Still didn't frickin' go. The last pilot I did, was already bought. Then COVID came along, shut everything. It's I haven't had shit going on in the last 10 years, mostly because I'm lazy, but also because it's hard to get stuff going. One neglected area of reality shows is smart people. What you generally have are good-looking people / idiots / assholes. Any one of those things might get your show onto the air. Any 2 of them, and you've got a really good chance. But the deal is that smart people, including myself, can be and are as much assholes as we have as many assholes as any other demographic. And somebody should do a show where it's something as simple as you take like when you do the Real Housewives show, right? And I don't know what they tell the women when they recruit them. They say, well, we're recruiting you because you're beautiful, because you're glamorous, because you represent a lifestyle. But really what they don't tell them is because you're a fucking bunch of assholes. And you get you get half a dozen a-holes and you just smash them into each other. And you could do that with smart people to get half a dozen or 8 or 10 like self-proclaimed geniuses and say, we're interested in your genius. But really, you've looked at like 100 geniuses and you've taken the 8 or 10 biggest jag-off buttheads and you put them in a house together to solve puzzles or some shit. But really, it's not about solving anything. It's about seeing a bunch of pretentious fuckheads like be jerks to each other.
Right. What did you think of the Big Bang Theory when that came out? Because that was oriented towards smart people, so it kind of destroys the feeling that people can't relate or people.
Yeah, I mean, whenever I saw it, I might watch a few minutes. I didn't tune in regularly. It made me jealous because, here's like a show about all the shit that I think about all the time, and it's the biggest show on TV.
Right.
Also, they're for a while, and still to a great extent, there are a ton of shows about crime-solving geniuses, even like an NCIS or the fucking other thing, Miami and Vegas, and anyway, all those shows. They might be like regular, just good-looking cops doing shit, but back in the lab, they've got 1 or 2 geniuses. So every show had nobody ever consulted. Like I couldn't get hired on any of that. I didn't try very hard. I tried a little bit, but I mean, all those shows kind of just made me sad and jealous.
Right, because there is a little niche there, but. I guess, I can't, and don't ask me because I have no idea what I'm talking about. But, it seems to me, and I guess it comes back to perseverance, but,
I ran out of perseverance.
Right. Yeah. So, what do you think, what is it that you can do that has some chance of being successful?
All right. So there's this doc project that I'm not the producer on, that looks at, I can't give you the angle, but I think it sold already a couple places. It had deals and then it fell apart, but it's still alive. But I'm less and less alive. I'm 64 and a half. Nobody wants to see a 65-year-old motherfucker on TV. So it's got to get going, but
Well, there was the one, I can't remember the name now, but you'll remember the guy who was a doctor who had Asperger's or something like that. So
you mean The Good Doctor, which was
Good Doctor? I think there was something like that.
Yeah, a young guy on an ABC show plays a doctor who is completely bereft devoid
of emotions and
but he learns a lesson every episode. He learns a little bit better how to live among humans. And there was another one out of Korea about a lawyer. Same deal. Brilliant.
Remember House? He was a doctor who was just crappy, but brilliant.
He was a prick, but he was in intense pain. All that was the show's excuse. A, he was a prick. B, how could he not be a prick because he had something wrong with his leg that meant he was
chronic pain. Yeah. Well, don't you think that's your niche? Like the gripey old smart guy that's grumpy?
I don't know, maybe, but somebody has to fucking make it. I mean, we know how to do it. The way to do it is to do King of Comedy, which the King of Comedy, the plot of that is, this is a young Robert De Niro plays a guy who thinks he idolizes talk show hosts, and he set up one in his basement.
Oh, okay.
And but he's an insane guy, and he kidnaps Jerry Lewis, who plays a late night. Isn't it a Scorsese movie? I think even.
It could
where,
be.
Anyway, De Niro plays a lunatic, a psycho who kidnaps a talk show host and forces the talk show host into putting the lunatic on TV. That's the way you get shit done, is you do something freaking crazy. But I've also run out of craziness.
Right.
I used to try to do something crazy every few months and something totally insane every few years.
Right. But I think you work on the house angle where you're a specialist in some field, so you're providing an essential.
No, but I haven't written episodic ever. Episodic is where you write a whole half-hour plot. I've written jokes for TV. I write for TV 100 words at a time.
Okay.
And the only pilot I've ever written was my ex-writing partner and I wrote not a pilot, a spec script. We wrote one for Beavis and Butthead. It went frickin', actually it got used, it got adapted into something else that actually got onto TV later. But, that was like an 8-page or a 12-page script. I've never sat down and written and so it's back to my gripe about laziness, but if I did write a 50, 60-page script, a pilot script for a 1-hour drama, or a 30-page script for a half-hour sitcom, it would go nowhere. I'd have to get an agent again. I haven't had an agent in forever. And then the agent would submit it, and it would sit in a stack of 100, more like 200 spec scripts. And maybe somebody would take a quick look at it, maybe spend 3 minutes on it, and it wouldn't be the most genius thing in the world, because I wouldn't be the greatest genius in the world at writing in a format that I've never written in. And so they would get looked at for half a second and nothing would happen with it.
Okay. So your forte is to write jokes for others to say.
Kinda, though even as a joke writer, people considered me a weirdo. Like some people, like in not a great way. Like some people are considered joke late night geniuses. A guy named Dino Stampanopoulos, for instance, just gets hired on the strength of him being Dino Stampanopoulos. And there are, a couple dozen names like that. And, my reputation is not weird and brilliant. It's just weird and weird. Like you can hire me and I'll deliver a stripping telegram. Oh yeah, he's the joke writer who, if you pay him $50, he'll come dance on a table and show you his dick. It doesn't get you hired.
Okay. Well, far be it for me to give you career advice, but let's talk about the gripe in general. When you see a show and you're annoyed because it would have been perfect for you or for you to write for it.
Well, hold on. There's an anti-gripe in there, because if I see a show that it would have been perfect for me, that means I would have to work on the show, and working on a show is hardly ever perfect, because I've worked in some great writers' rooms, but it's hard work. It's all consuming.
And what made them great, if I can ask?
Because you're working around like some of the most funniest people in America, and it's freaking great, because it's all. But also there are high standards, and you have to keep working and revisiting stuff to meet the standards.
Okay.
And also, it's like the world's meanest middle school.
Yeah.
Which is hilarious, but also it's brutal.
Right.
And the hours can be brutal, like 10, 12 hours a day. It's like
Right.
being a doctor. You're always on call to the topics that break. There can be breaking news and you got to write to it. You're like a doctor who doesn't help anybody.
Now, if you have a co-writer, how does that work? I don't understand the concept.
You know,
I've only written by myself, for myself, and for others. But
you throw out somebody's the typist, and since I was the little bitch, the beta in the partnership, I was the typist, and so you'd yell out stuff, and your partner would be like, yeah, that's good, or maybe this would be better, or your partner would say, no, that's stupid, that sucks, and eventually you come up with. So it's good in that, you know, if you're writing on your own, you write a draft, and then you go through, and if you've got strong critical judgment, which you should have, you should go through it and go, that sucks, I need another thought there, that needs to be better, and you go bam, 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 and you knock out the shitty stuff and eventually replace it with, you know, better stuff. With a writing partner, it's like doing 3 drafts at once, where somebody says something and the other person says, okay, that might be a good beat, but the line that you just said, let's try this instead, and you're like, well, what about this? And you got the back and forth as you're going, so it probably results in a more developed product.
Yes, I would think so. I've only worked with editors, and I've had good editors and bad editors. And some editors are like, you know, they get it right away and they're helping me improve it. And others are like, you know, grammar. Conan the Grammarian is what I called one of them.
Yeah, well, like some editors are freaking brilliant. Like, they can do things that you would never even see or think of. Like when you're cutting from one shot to another, they might see movement of something in the frame going like this, and they match it to a moment in the thing you're cutting to that has the same motion. So it rolls the viewer without the viewer's not even conscious that they are being eased through the
transition.
Yeah, and you're like, whoa, that's freaking amazing. And so yeah, some editors are freaking great. My writing partner was funniest guy in the room, funnier than me, a prick. So there was good and bad.
Okay. So I'm going to think about this because, you know, the laziness is an issue, but the talent shouldn't go to waste. Is that fair? Do you think that that's fair?
Yeah, I mean, I am working on something, but I'm working on it lazily. I'm working on a book, but I've always been working on a book. Have I ever published? I had a book deal for 4 days. Editor from Riverside Press says, yeah, we want to buy your book. And then 4 days later, she calls back, says, no, I couldn't persuade my partners, my bosses but you know, so I've been working on a book for 40 years, 50 years. I've never published a frickin' book.
Okay. All right.
So
we'll take that into account too. And I know what it's like, you know, to have to work with somebody, but you and they agree, but then they have to get approval, and you know that's when the rubber meets the road.
I mean, my TV career was really lucky. I got to work on a ton of stuff, make a ton of stuff.
Yeah.
But not in a long time.
Right. So the streaming, this is my last question. The streaming phenomena that's occurred, has that given you any ideas about new possibilities? Because everybody, like Apple's publishing new shows,
I mean,
Netflix is,
you know, like, I mean, I've made my own little stupid show that was on YouTube, and now it's on Pod TV for 8 years since Trump got elected.
Right.
And has that led to anything? No, it's just led to me spending little dribbles of money to make episodes of it. And there are hundreds of episodes.
Right.
And it's a fun, odd, horrible little show where, you know, I, a genius liberal, argue with a deluded Trumpy guy. I'm an artist model. He draws me, paints me while we're arguing. It's a fun format. We've added our director is a very good musician, so now we have a musical segment. It's got all this stuff going on. Does it go anywhere? Does it lead to anything else? Barely.
Okay.
You do this. You've got your show here. Do people see your show and then they say, "Well, come do this shit for us"?
Not yet. But one thing that I did do did lead to this show. So, that's how these things work sometimes. But and I think you got the attitude to just keep putting stuff out there. Something might happen.
Yeah. Well,
right. Who knows?
Maybe I think something will happen with my stuff posthumously. Somebody's going to look. There's this really interesting guy. He's dead now, but let's take a retrospective look at this lunatic and how he spent his life.
Okay.
But that doesn't help me because I'm freaking dead.
Gotcha. And now we're getting away from gripes into morbidity. So I think it's time to wrap up today's show.
All right.
This segment of this show.
I didn't offer any solutions on how to be less frustrated.
Yes. The thing that I was trying to get to was channel that and whatever energy you have into something that you think has a prospect, has a chance of working. And not that it will work, but in order to staying away from the focus on things that haven't worked or have not been successful, imagine something that might work, that makes you happy to do. And if you concentrate on making yourself happy doing it, it doesn't really matter if it's a tremendous success. Do it, look inside and says, what makes Rick Rosner happy? And work on that. And stick to that stuff that makes you happy. And if it's your show that doesn't go anywhere, who cares?
No, that show makes me sad.
Okay, well, then let's reorganize that thinking.
It would have been, because I haven't done a show since the election because my Trumpy friend is going to be just glowing with triumph. Yeah, I don't want to entertain that crap.
Gotcha.
All right. I will see you next week.
Okay. Thanks again, Rick. Okay. I'll take you backstage. Okay. That was Rick Rosner, our senior gripe correspondent. But I want to let you know that if you are interested in seeing other episodes, scrolling across the bottom of the screen now is AIRU.tv, the website that contains all of those types of things. And let's see, I have one more thing that I wanted to show you if I can find it. And I'm blanking on where it is. Okay, here it is. All right. So if you want to write with ideas, write and tell Rick, hey, I think you're great. I want to hire you. Write to us at info@airu.tv. And we'll get back to you, and both Rick and I are lazy, so don't expect an immediate response. But one day we'll get back to you. In the meantime, stay calm. Hi, welcome to episode 10 of season 2 of Calm Down with James Eade. I'm James Eade, and I'm not the best person to help us learn the tools and techniques that we need to help ourselves calm down when we find ourselves anxious, agitated, or angry. And so I've brought on a spiritual therapist, a yoga instructor, Yudhishthira. Thank you for coming on.
Good morning, Jim.
Good morning. And let's see, where did we leave off? We left off with the voice.
The fifth chakra,
Fifth chakra.
Is I associated with the divine quality of calmness with a capital C. And it's one of those things we know when we're calm, and we also know when we're not.
Right. And it's usually comes out when I'm not calm, it comes out of my voice.
It is so true. And there's a reason, by the way.
Apparently
or there is at least not a reason, but an obvious connection between this energy center and the voice.
Right. Right. Okay, so we're raising our energy level today. And where are we concentrating?
We are coming to the base of the brain at the medulla. And I just immediately went into a common reference point. It's not wrong. I'm only saying we went to the base of the brain. The brain is there. The brain stem is there because of the energy pattern that is initiated in advance of the physical reality. When the egg and ovum unite, and the very first thing that they begin to create after you get through the blastula stages, all the different multiplications of the original cells, when they begin to delineate into different body structures, the very first structure they create is the medulla and the spinal cord.
Okay.
That central nervous system is the very first thing that begins. And and it's helpful to understand the value, of this, both physically and spiritually. Because physically, all the things that we don't want to have to remember to do, in order to survive. I mean, breathing, heartbeat.
Right. We don't have to think about having our heartbeat.
Right. I mean, that'd be ridiculous.
Yeah.
And yet it's an interesting thing, because tuning into those two things, breath and heartbeat, when you close your eyes, if you become internally focused on one of those two things, it will take you deep and beyond them. So they serve a purpose in meditation as well.
So
and
true.
Oftentimes, when I meditate, I have headphones, the kind that people use when they're shooting guns.
Silence.
Yeah, and a lot of people use them simply to help silence external noise.
Sure.
Because with those headphones on, you can actually hear your breath more clearly. You can even hear the heartbeat. And there are many other techniques that don't really apply to what we're talking about right here. But it's important to understand that this base of the brain is essential. In fact, if we are injured there, the chances of death are almost 100%.
Right.
I mean, it's just that everything stops.
Right. And
spiritually speaking, I've been mentioning this book to you, the hidden stories, or the hidden, I don't have it anymore. I gave it away. The hidden story of the Mahabharata.
Right.
And it's just such an amazing book. And it, I've mentioned it to you before that there's these warring factions within one family. And this whole story is just an allegory of us, the body that we're in,
right,
the ego that is centered at the base of the brain, and our higher potential, which are the chakras represented by these 5 brothers. But they are guided in their side of this war from this point here, which is Krishna. We'll get to that next week.
Right.
But it's very, very interesting within the story. These opponents in this battle, the physical and the spiritual, the righteous and the non-righteous, are all relatives. They're all trained by the same people. And this is the part that's so cool. Their grandfather is named Bhishma. Bhishma represents allegorically the ego.
And he's the giant. Is that right?
No, that's Bhima, the heart.
Bhima. Okay.
All right.
Right.
And it's easy to get the mix up. Bhishma is the grandfather. He is beloved. He is not bad, but he has said that he would stick with his one grandson, who's characterized by the quality of material desire.
I
But
see.
Bhishma is loyal.
Right.
Bhishma is true to his word.
Right.
And so our ego is not a bad thing. And this is where things tend to get slippery for us, is that we tend to think about the ego as being a negative. And Yogananda, my guru, simply said the ego is just the soul, the permanent part of who we are, temporarily identified with the body and the personality of this incarnation. Absolutely necessary. You got to have it.
Right.
And even the greatest of gurus, the avatars in the world, they need to have some identification with their physical form.
Sure.
One of the true saints, true avatars of this age, the 20th century at least, was a woman named Anandamoyi Ma. And Yogananda met her in 1936. She passed in the 1980s, I believe. And she was just barely in her body. She was so disconnected, or so not identified with her body, that her devotees oftentimes would have to feed her.
Right.
Because otherwise she wouldn't eat.
Right.
And
Yep. I wanted to tell you again that I was told early in my recovery that your ego is not your amigo. A catchy phrase. And but what I've learned is not only is it essential, to do your daily tasks and that sort of thing, but ego properly integrated is an ally, not a foe.
Absolutely. And that's why oftentimes when I teach and when I'm thinking about it myself, the ego becomes like a well-trained dog. You think about I always like German Shepherds, Alsatians. And when you get a beautiful Alsatian who is well-trained, he is like an amazing friend, and will become your ally, guide you. If you're blind, they can do wonderful things in terms of helping you move through the world. And so the ego is not a bad thing unless it forgets its true self, which is what happens in most people most of the time.
Right.
And so when people begin to operate egoically, or different adjectives here, egotistically,
right.
All right, it means they are operating exclusively from the ego. Now, behind me, to keep things at the level of the chakras, I brought in, it works out today because we're at this center here. And each of the chakras, you'll see the one below it, the throat center, has, I forget, 16 petals, 16 rays. But the one above it, the medulla and the spiritual eye, just 2. The medulla is one, the spiritual eye is the other. And these are rays of divinity as they manifest through these energy centers. That gets really, that sounds really out there, even as I'm saying it. But the point is that we can learn to operate using the ego extremely well. Here's the thing that the ego tends to do. It tends to limit us to this body that we're in, this lifetime we're in, and tends to not be aware of all the lifetimes before. The ego tends to be identified with what I want, what I need, and tends not to automatically begin to say, I radiate love and goodwill to soul friends everywhere.
Everywhere. Yes.
Yeah. That's not the ego talking.
Right.
That can be the heart talking, and it's
Yes.
certainly the soul at its highest level. Let me read to you a simple affirmation.
Oh, great.
About immortality. And so this is one I'll say it twice through at least. And the way affirmations work best is to say them progressively from a loud to a normal to a very whispered voice, and then maybe just to repeat them mentally. So here's an affirmation about immortality. This tends to counteract the ego's tendency to identify only with the body I'm in and the personality I've got this lifetime and this lifetime that I'm in right now. And so I am a child of eternity. I am ageless. I am deathless. I am the changeless spirit at the heart of all mutation. I am a child of eternity. I am ageless. I am deathless. I am the changeless spirit at the heart of all mutation. So one last time in a whisper, I am a child of eternity. I am ageless. I am deathless. I am the changeless spirit at the heart of all mutation. So we have a lot of tools in yoga, and all the tools of yoga in some way will tend to keep the energy from getting stopped at the medulla, and will tend to keep energy coming inward and upward, bringing this medulla energy and that wonderful ally to the point between the eyebrows.
Right. And one other thing that I've learned, it was told to me, and I'm not sure I believed it when it was told to me, but I experienced it. The ego is cunning as well and will take over no matter how I can be practicing my rituals. I could be very centered, very spiritually oriented. And the next thing I know, I'm behind the wheel of my car and my ego's taking charge of it. And it's just, it's inevitable for me. I can't string together 24 hours without my ego taking over at some point. But the awareness of it is critical.
Well, and you have that, and I think of it as a switch within our consciousness at some point gets flipped.
Yes.
And that switch has been flipped for you. You now are aware of having temporarily lost your higher faculties.
Right.
When you get into traffic. All right.
Right.
And we all have these situations. At Thanksgiving, I became so increasingly aware. I always do Thanksgiving with my biological family. They are part of my karma.
Sure.
I love them, and it's really a positive on my end.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that way for everybody. So when I go there, but I am nonetheless aware that I shift my behavior, the words I use, I shift them just a little bit, and I become another version of myself.
Mm-hmm.
But I was aware of it, and it's not like it's bad.
Right.
It's not like I suddenly started drinking or any of those things. It's just that I'm aware that I'm a little less focused here and a little more focused back here.
Yeah.
When I am correspondingly with my spiritual family in my spiritual world, which is most of the time, everybody around me has had that switch turned on, including you. And I know that every one of those people has a center of awareness that is always moving through rather than to this
Right.
this pole of the spiritual eye.
And when the awareness kicks in, I don't have to be stuck there. I can, fall into that mode of behavior. But when I become aware, I have absolute confidence that I can regain my sense, because I've done it enough times that it's not deniable. I can do it. So,
well, and certain qualities, we get better at certain things.
Mhm.
Surrender. And I don't mean giving up, of course. I mean surrender to the reality that, I temporarily forgot.
Mhm.
I forgot who I
And
am.
that's all. Forgive yourself for forgetting.
Exactly.
You're human.
Humility,
Yes.
and humility is the only cure for hubris.
Right.
And hubris is like the ego, like amplified.
Run wild. Yes.
Yes. And humility is the counter to that. So, when it comes to this center, and a lot of this can be, you can work with it physically.
Mhm.
By the way, the idea that when, we have terms in our language that I suspect travel throughout all languages. That is that in English, we talk about someone whose nose is up in the air.
Mhm.
They have a lot of energy at the medulla, and it literally pulls their nose up. And they're looking down their nose,
Aha.
at other
Yes.
people. And it's like they're so filled with their own sense of self-importance.
Yeah, that's so interesting, because those are such common phrases. So you look down your nose. Yeah.
And there are a lot of things that we can do physically that are extremely helpful at releasing this energy and putting it here. For example, here's one simple technique. If you bring your chin down to the notch at the top of the sternum and then pull your chin back, you'll feel your whole throat tense.
Uh-huh.
That's called Jalandhara Bandha. Bandha means to seal or lock energy in. So you've locked it in at this center, but your gaze is lifted to the point between the eyebrows. And so you can hold that tension in place, keep breathing, and then on inhaling breath, just lift your chin up to neutral and lift your gaze up to the point between the eyebrows. And what that does is create a powerful flow through the medulla into the spiritual eye. And so Jalandhara Bandha is a physical tool.
This is great. This is added to my toolbox. Yeah.
And if you there's a particular book that I strongly recommend that you may already have called Spiritual Yoga. And
you mentioned it before. It's on my list.
Well, the bandha that I just mentioned is included in that book. And another thing you can do is, everybody knows what it's like when you literally get tension here.
Yes.
And if you have someone who you're comfortable touching you comes up and begins to massage. So we can use the physical body as a way of releasing energy at the medulla.
Right.
Yet most of it is going to come back down to an awareness that the goal in yoga, in fact, I have to say it that way because yoga is only describing a path that every soul will take in its reunion with the divine. The words we use, the language we use, the structure of the religion or the practice around us, all those change. But the path is always going to be the same.
Mm-hmm.
And so within us, there is this path, literally, that we can begin to work with. That's what we're doing with these chakras.
Right.
And we begin to work our way gradually up through them, learning different tools along the way. Yoga postures,
right.
Bandhas, this bandha. There's the one behind the navel as well. There's one on the pelvic floor. All of these are just ways of working, using the body to really energize and move energy inward and upward. And for I was working with a student yesterday in a private session, and he's struggling because of the fact he was raised and still feels like I'm a Muslim.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was trying to find ways to that would work for him. And so I asked him what are the mantras in Islam? And he said, well, I don't understand. So we looked it up, we Googled it. And sure enough, there are not mantras per se, they don't describe it as such, but they are repeated phrases that all have to do with surrendering to the will of God in the moment.
Right.
It's a beautiful practice.
Right.
And that is going to move energy inward and upward through the spine, whether one is aware of that pathway or not.
Right.
The result is going to be the same.
Right.
Energy moving inward and upward expands us. And when we come to the ego, it is just a place where a lot of people tend to get caught for who knows how many thousands of lifetimes.
Mm-hmm.
But at some point, again, there is this moment that is, I think, divinely ordained, when we've either suffered enough or we have gotten a taste of what we're capable of.
Right.
One of those two things, or maybe both of those, have to happen.
Right.
And then we begin to realize, I just taught a class this morning in which it was on I use the quality of immortality. And it's as if, this is good science fiction, by the way, as well, that you have this device that shadows you wherever you go, records everything that happens. And it can, and in this case, it is our own self-awareness that is shadowing us and is keeping us consciously aware, not only of the external events and actions and words, so sound and light, but also of the internal practice of what is going on within you. And in the Bhagavad Gita, the Mahabharata being a bigger story, the Bhagavad Gita being just a part of it, the whole story is actually told from the standpoint of an impartial observer.
Right.
And the impartial observer has the ability to describe to his listener what has transpired, the thoughts, the intentions, the actions. And so we have that within us, that watcher, that observer. It is not our mind, it's not the brain, it is the consciousness that is expressed through the brain. And this path of yoga is just a wonderful way of making it clear that it is always a matter of moving inward and upward. And at this point where we've come through the center of calmness, we have to keep the energy moving upward, because there are plenty of people in the world, and thank God for them, who have gotten the energy up to the medulla and they're living good lives, but they're still focused on material reality.
Mm-hmm.
And yet they are nonetheless generous and kind.
Right.
The grandfather to these great warriors, the Pandavas, was not bad.
Right.
In fact, he was wise. He was loyal. And so the ego can hit this point of being developed to a degree that it's loyal. It's a good friend. It's actually doing good things. And yet it is still identified as I'm the body I'm in. So, I'll, sort of draw things to a close here by talking about these two poles, the medulla, spiritual eye.
Okay.
And so every other chakra has had two planets in the astrological chart. This center does as well, But the medulla is identified with the planet, or astrologically, with the zodiacal sign of Cancer.
Okay.
The planet is the moon. And that's an interesting point, because
Really?
think about what the moon does relative to the sun.
Reflects.
It reflects. It does not generate light of its own.
Right.
And when the ego is perfectly aligned, it becomes the perfect reflection of the sun, spiritual eye. And when it is misaligned, you get, all the various phases of the moon. I mentioned Bhishma as being in the Mahabharata the grandfather, and that's who it's identified with there. The Jalandhar Bandha I showed you is one good technique.
Right.
If you're into yoga postures, shoulder stand is a good technique. Because in true shoulder stand, your chin is here. You've locked the throat.
Okay.
All right. And this is really stretched and open.
Right.
You got to be careful not to overdo it. And let me see if there's.
Did you say that for my benefit? Just
if you want to, no, I did not say it for your benefit. But the ways that you can overcome the ego are the paths of Nishkam Karma, or Karma Yoga in general. Nishkam Karma meaning selfless service. So if you realize that you tend to be focused on yourself, overly so, and that you have suffered enough that you don't like what's going on, and you want to find a way to work with it, individually we can do things like Jalandhar Bandha and shoulder stand. But in the world, it means, hey, I volunteer. I volunteer for worthy causes, where I am not the focus.
Right.
Service is the focus. So I think that's, about it in terms of the negative pole, or the connotation. Pole, it's magnetically so.
Right.
And this would be the South Pole,
which is neutral.
Yeah, and this would be the North Pole.
Right.
And that's where we'll get to next week, is talking about the spiritual eye.
I can't wait. Thank you so much. I really appreciated it.
Okay.
And thank you for the new tool.
You're welcome, and anytime. And I will look forward to seeing you next week. Okay.
Okay. I look forward to that too. Goodbye for now. Oh, Isra has given us given me at least a new tool to work with, to make my ego my ally. Now, this show, if you're interested in doing, looking at previous episodes, because we've gone through yamas, niyamas, we've gone through the chakras now, and go to the website AIRU.tv, because that's where you will find all the previous episodes. And if you want to ask a question, you may not know Yudhisthira, but I do. I can relay the question to him. Just write to us at info@airu.tv. But until then, thank you for calming down with me. Welcome to the final segment of Calm Down. And I want to introduce to you, my loyal listeners and viewers, Divya Lovewise, that wise yogi. And I would like you, at the end of every show, I'm a little bit agitated and worked up and all that kind of stuff. And I was wondering if there's something that you could do to calm me down. Could you just say goodbye to us in any way that you see fit?
Sure, I would love to.
I will take off and let you do that. Thanks again.
Okay. Well, bring yourself into a comfortable seated position, feeling your feet on the floor and letting your hands rest in your lap. Palms up or palms down is a great way to start bringing yourself back into center and focus with your own divine energy and letting go of anything that might have wanted to stick to us throughout the day that may be energy we don't want to carry throughout the day. So having this basic position, feeling grounded, even closing your eyes and taking a deep breath in through the nose and out through the mouth. And one of the ways we can bring ourselves back to center is observing with our senses what we can feel, the temperature of the air in the room, observing any sounds that you hear. Noticing any smells in the air. And then bring your awareness to your breath. As though you're watching it from the inside out. Watching the inhale wash into the body. And watching the exhale wash out of the body. Just like the waves of the ocean as they wash onto the shore. And if you find your mind still wandering, you can even place one hand on your lower belly and one hand on your heart so that you can feel with your hands this breath washing in and washing out. And with your mind's eye, visualize this inhalation and exhalation as an internal shower, clearing away your energy so that it's refreshed, it's rejuvenated, and it's restored. Releasing your hands into your lap, just give yourself a few seconds of pause in this return to peace, enjoying it. When you are ready, you can open your eyes, wiggling your fingers and your toes, feeling grounded in your body, grounded in the best part of yourself, and you can go out into the world and carry that best part in the forefront of your mind and your heart.